All right, welcome back. I am reading my memoir, Rebirth. If you just stumbled upon this video now, please go back to the beginnings because I've been reading in sequence so that you know exactly what is happening along in the story. If you subscribe, then you'll know when the next chapter drops. And if you like the story, please like and share so it reaches the people who are meant to hear it. And please leave a comment. Say hi. Let me know that you're here, that you're following along. Let me know any thoughts, insights, feedback, anything that would help me make this story even better. You can ask questions even. So I'm reading chapter 23, and it's entitled Limbo and Transition. It took me a while to leave the house. I was distraught about my mom leaving so suddenly, and then it took time to negotiate what to do in case of emergency since we only had one working cell phone and no other phone. By the time everything was settled, over an hour had passed. I left through the back door, walked across the backyard, and through the garage to the car parked in the laneway. Sitting in the driver's seat, a rush of freedom washed over me. The feeling was quickly replaced by annoyance as I drove down the laneway and noticed the gas tank was almost empty. Of course it was. Instead of heading straight to the highway, I drove through back streets to Marley and Lawrence, the closest gas station. As I turned left onto Marley, the car started making a funny noise. Only 4 streets from the gas station, the car began to lose power. It no longer accelerated, even when I pressed the gas pedal. Yet, it didn't jerk as it usually did when out of gas. It simply decelerated. This car needs a lot of oil, I remember Mauro saying on a few occasions. The engine gave out just as I reached the gas station. I coasted in. Thankful, the remaining momentum allowed me to make the right turn and reach the gas pump. It felt like a small victory on a day when everything seemed to be going wrong, and I felt grateful for the small mercy. I turned off the ignition and removed the key. Reaching down, I released the gas hatch before getting out of the car. I inserted my credit card into the pump, selected the fuel type, grabbed the nozzle with my left hand, uncapped the gas tank, inserted the nozzle, and pressed the lever to begin filling the car. Once finished, I replaced everything, then pulled the hood latch before heading inside to get oil. It felt so good to be outside. I sensed the grandness of the world and my small place within it. As I walked, I reached my hands up to the sky, fully absorbing the feeling. It was my first outing since Evelyn was born. I felt purposeful, like I was born for this moment, with a deep sense of connection to all things. It felt good to be alive. It felt part of a grand master plan, as though the universe was shining down on me like a spotlight following me across the stage. I walked over to the rack just outside to the right of the store's front entrance. I picked up a yellow 1-liter bottle of engine oil and went inside, straight to the counter, where I held up the bottle to the attendant and asked if he could put it in my car. He said no. His response surprised me, but I was also curious. Okay, I answered, cocking my head to one side. I took a deep breath and smiled, deciding to rephrase my question. Could you point out where the oil goes? I can pour it in myself. He said no. Truthfully, I was enjoying our conversation. It felt like a game of figuring out how to phrase my questions so he would understand and help me. It wasn't that I didn't know how to change my oil. I'd done it before. I worked at a gas station when I was 14, but those memories were a little foggy. During pregnancy, they called that fogginess baby brain. I wasn't sure how long it lasted or even if I still had it after giving birth, but it was definitely there right now. I figured if someone could just point out where to pour the oil, I could manage the rest myself. I smiled and tried again. I haven't done this in a long time. It's not even my car, and I want to make sure I do it right. I paused, evaluating his facial expression. He was just staring at me, his face unchanged, so I continued. If you could just point to where it goes, I'll know what to do from there. He seemed to liven up, then said, I can't help you. My heart sank. He then turned towards the large bay window facing the parking lot and gas pumps, pointed and added, but you can go ask that guy parked outside. Still perplexed by his answer, but willing to go along with it, I rose onto my tiptoes and looked out the window. There was a green minivan. All right, I told myself, asking the guy outside is a good idea. I headed out of the store, plastic oil bottle still in hand, and walked straight towards the minivan. The driver was looking down at his mobile phone, and the window was slightly open at the top. I knocked lightly on the window with my middle knuckle. He looked up, a slightly frightened look on his face that seemed to turn to panic as I stared at him through the glass. Was I scary today? He opened the car door a crack, and I held up the jug of oil, pointed to my car by the pump, and asked, could you point out where this goes in my car? Just point it out, and I'll pour the oil in myself. His face relaxed into a smile, and he answered, okay, opened his car door and stepped out. Wordlessly, we walked over to my car together. I had already released the hood, so I bent down to locate the latch to unlock and raise it. The man then raised the metal arm that holds the hood up and pointed to where the oil should go. I thanked him, reassuring him that I was now okay to pour the oil. I just wanted to be sure of the location. He smiled, nodded, and walked back to his car, looking down at his phone the whole way. When I checked the car's engine, I noticed a picture on the oil cap. I felt a bit silly, thinking I probably could have managed on my own. I unscrewed the black oil cap and peered inside. I could see the shiny metal at the bottom, and judging by the fumes, it looked bone dry and extremely hot. I poured in the entire bottle of oil and checked again. It still looked dry. There wasn't even a slight coating of oil on the bottom. I tossed the empty bottle into the trash bin and returned to the store, where I grabbed 2 more jugs of oil. At the counter, I smiled and told the attendant, the oil compartment is bone dry. He smiled back reassuringly and said, I hope the car's owner will reimburse you for the oil you're buying. That hadn't occurred to me, even though it was my husband's car, and I was amused by our different perspectives. I walked back outside to the car, hood still open, a jug in hand, and poured in 1 bottle after the other. Checking the bottom in between, it was still bone dry, without even a coating of oil. It seemed so strange. I went back into the gas station store to look for more bottles. The 2 I just purchased were the last ones on the rack outside. I couldn't wait to get home and tell Mauro about this, thinking he should take better care of his car, especially now that we have a child. What if there was an emergency? Amused by the situation, I decided to call Diego. Why wait until I got home to tell Mauro? The phone rang and Diego answered. Hey Diego, how are you? Good, MJ, how are you? He responded. Not so good, I told him. Can you relay a message to your brother for me? Please tell him he's been neglectful long enough. I just put 3 liters of oil in the car and it's still bone dry. The other end was silent. Diego? I asked, feeling curious. I listened intently and thought I could hear him breathing. He finally answered in a dry, distant tone. Look, MJ, you have to give your message to my brother yourself. Oh, yes, I know, and I would, I said, realizing my mistake, yet still feeling amused and playful. Let me start over. I should have mentioned Mauro's at home right now. I have his cell phone because mine went missing a few weeks ago. We agreed that if anything happened, you would be our point of contact. I could call you and you could email him. Another long silent pause. Then in the same dry, distant voice, you have to talk to my brother yourself. I was still puzzling over how to surmount this new obstacle. I know, and I would, but we agreed you were our point of contact. I paused, realizing we hadn't asked his permission to involve him in our plan. My dog just barked. I suppose we should have asked if that was first. Yeah, he said. Okay, no worries. Thanks, I replied, then sighed. I wasn't sure what else to say. I was a little disappointed, but he would have to wait until I got home to find out about all this, even though something in me felt the void of his unawareness of what was happening. It seemed important that he know. I hung up, but put my phone back in my pocket and walked back to the store to get 2 more jugs of oil before paying. The attendant's face was now lit up. There was a new glow in his eyes, and he chuckled as I placed the oil bottles on the counter. I was glad to see him smiling and smiled back to reassure him. Then, in a more serious tone, he said, "The owner of the car isn't much of a friend to lend a car that needs so much oil." I laughed. I went back to the car and poured in the 2 jugs. I could still see the bottom, and it was still bone dry. Something felt wrong. I pulled out my phone again and dialed Diego's number. "Diego," I said when he answered, trying to sound cheerful, then paused before adding, "My brother, I need your help. I've now put 5 liters of oil in the car, and the oil compartment is still bone dry. Will you relay my message now, please?" The other end was silent for a few seconds. "No, MJ," he finally said, his voice sounding annoyed. "Okay, thanks," I said, and hung up. There was no point in dwelling on it. I bought 2 more jugs of oil. The attendant said he had never seen anything like this before. Neither had I. I returned to the car and poured in both jugs, checking the level after each one. Still bone dry. I was perplexed. A tingling sensation moved up my back. Something felt wrong. I decided to get a plastic bag from the trunk to keep all the empty jugs. I retrieved them from the trash bin. I had to keep the evidence. Otherwise, Mauro would never believe me. I walked back to get more oil, still feeling the odd urge to relay the message to Mauro right away. Mauro's mom then popped into my mind. I knew she would want to help, so I dialed her number. While the phone was ringing, I thought maybe she could convince Diego to relay my message. Diego picked up the phone. Darn it. I knew he was living there now, but I hadn't expected him to answer. "Hi, Diego. Is your mom home?" I asked. There was a silent pause before he answered in the same dry, distant voice. "She's not home, MJ." "Oh, okay, thanks," I said, and hung up. A new feeling overwhelmed me. I felt stranded and had a greater sense of urgency to get the message to Mauro. This time, I bought 3 jugs of oil to hurry the process along. I headed back to the car and poured them in. Finally, after the 3rd one, making a total of 10, I could see the oil at the bottom, and I called Diego again. And that is the end of chapter 23 of my memoir called Rebirth. If you like the story that I'm sharing, please be sure to like and share so it reaches the people who are meant to hear it so that I know you like it. And if you're following along, I'd love to hear any thoughts or comments so that I know that you're here. And if you haven't subscribed, be sure to subscribe so that you know when the next chapter drops. Thank you again so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you in the next chapter.